Welcome back to PricePlow. Longtime returner, Matt Karich from Soul Performance Nutrition. Matt, we had you back on episode 68. So if everyone's looking for an introduction, check that one out. We are here now at episode 135. So quite a few things have transpired since then. Matt, how's it going? Let's get the Soul Performance Nutrition update here.
It's going good. I think the last time we spoke, we launched Bliss Revitalized Collagen. So that was the collagen with the Velocitol addition and obviously all the other goodies in there. But that was kind of the big thing at the time. Right after that, I think a couple months later, we launched the pre-workout. So that was the one with the high sodium, kind of drifted away from all the citrulline and typical pump ingredients and went down like the big electrolyte pathway. I'm huge into electrolytes. I just love that category. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to build a pre-workout around that and just see how I like it. So I tested it out, loved it. I use it a lot in like kind of like titrated down versions. Sometimes I'll do quarter scoop, half scoops when I go in these big long runs, and it works out pretty well for me. Or if I'm going in the gym, just a typical scoop. And then the last one in that same time frame was Solace Joint Care. And that one for a while, that was a huge, and I think it's still probably our number one seller. That was just kind of taking a lot of funky ingredients that typically aren't used in joint products, putting them into one, some brand new ones at the time. And that was a really cool product. I think probably still to this day, that might be just from like a science and a trial and like error perspective, one of my most fun ones I've ever done. And I love the connection with that one. That one was pretty cool.
Sweet. Okay. And so more recently, you've switched to the glass bottles here. I'm holding up a glass bottle of Nexus Peptide Complex. I want to hear all about that. And then you have another product, which is so Nexus Peptide Complex. We have just basically a single ingredient PeptiStrong, which we had another podcast episode on with Neil from Neuritas. And then also a combination of a second product. I'm forgetting the name. I'm sorry, but Colostrum and Lactoferrin, which I think is just the coolest quick little combo there is.
Yeah, that one's Nova Immune Renewal. That was kind of like a passion project. That one, well, we'll start with Nexus. That one was almost like community driven. So I always have, especially when Solace Joint Care came out, like a lot of people were like, oh, you got to do something with PeptiStrong. You're going to do something really cool. I know it's going to be. So typically I do like, more advanced formulas with a lot of ingredients in them and bring a lot of different things together. And it actually started out that way. And then it ended up being this, probably, I think looking close to like $90 some product, kind of going the same route as a lot of other products on the market. And I was like, you know what if I just literally do the opposite of that? Just do the ingredient on its own. I don't see that anywhere, and just go again, literally the opposite, is bring it to the market as cheaply as I possibly can. So people could, add it into their stack. Cause I think a lot of people were curious about the ingredient. They wanted to see it in more products. Well, here's a way to have easy access to it and not, have to break the bank to experiment with it on yourself and see, how it affects you. So that was kind of how I approached that one. And it was really like just people and DMs, like I said, the community, like kind of pushing for that one. So I think, if people reach out, I'll listen. I'll experiment with things. I'll come out with stuff. And the Neuritas guys were cool. They went over all the science. And they were kind of surprised too on some of our initial conversations. I was like, I think the market perception is this is it's an expensive single ingredient, but I was like, I think the market perception is this is like an outrageously expensive ingredient. And I'm like, I don't know if I view it that way. And this is what I'm planning on doing. And they kind of like that. So that one's been very successful. I think that one shot up to probably like number 2 seller just because of that aspect.
I know a lot of people in the industry were asking, how the hell can they afford that? It was kind of a fun challenge, honestly, to the industry. Like, hey, like this ingredient can't stand on its own, and we can get it to consumers. I remember it was very community driven. Like our Discord had a lot of the discussion that you had in there, and then I remember a night where you messaged me. You were just like, "What if it was just on its own? Do you think people would buy that?" And I was like, "Oh my god! Like this ingredient is all people are talking about right now. I definitely think people would purchase it if you made it like really cost effective for them." But I do have to agree with Mike. The immune product has been absolutely my favorite recently. That has actually rocked my like stack as a whole.
Yeah, that one was just looking at that one was sort of like I'm huge on the gut health category, and I always got pushed in the like probiotic direction. So, hey, like, probiotics are, what would you do there? Then I think that like when people hear probiotics or they hear gut health, that's often like the first thing they go toward is maybe like a greens type product, because that is often associated with that, or a probiotic type thing. But there's just so much in the probiotic space that science is all over the place. Like what dosage do you take? Which strain do you get? How long of duration do you take it? And I wasn't super confident on some of the things I was seeing, and I felt strongly on what it could be. But the further I got into things like colostrum and lactoferrin, especially lactoferrin, I was like, wow, I think this can really achieve similar results that people are looking for, like that gut health type category, and the results they're looking for from a probiotic, but from something completely different. And the funny story is with that one, I'm so focused on like this kind of immune, this gut health type action from it, and maybe almost like regenerative type thing from it, that I had a coworker early on. He was like the first person to get it, and he reaches out to me after a couple of days. He's like, "Man, I've been taking that one." He called it the brown one because it's got the brown label. He's terrible with names. I've been taking that brown one years, and he's like, I'm just like sleeping like through my alarm. And at the time, I'm like, well, I don't know if that's it. That's got to be something else. It's probably a placebo effect or something else is going on in his life. And then I had probably up to 10 people message me like shortly after that. And I didn't exactly mention it early on because I was like, I don't think that's an effect there. And I'm like, all right, there's some method of action that's happening here. What is it? And sure enough, there were all these studies on lactoferrin and sleep that I had no idea even existed. So the people who were basically taking it before they went to bed, that's kind of how I usually would suggest. I guess you can take it at any time, but I feel like most often people's routines are first thing in the morning or right before you go to bed. And people that would take it then, they're like, man, I'm like almost sleeping through my alarm clock. And I started doing that to myself. I switched it up from taking it in the morning to at night, and I experienced the same thing. And that's been really cool.
Yeah, I take lactoferrin before bed as well. That's why when you launched this product, I was also kind of going down the lactoferrin rabbit hole a little bit. And like my take is that it does a tremendous amount of things for liver health. And if you improve liver health, you're going to basically improve like all of health. It is the seed of all health. And so when I saw that you're naming it Nova Immune Renewal, I was like, I get that, but I was like, that's actually underselling what this formula is, because it can help clear out the bile ducts. And if you have like a system like a cholestasis, I don't want to get into like disease claims and stuff, but if your liver is not exactly getting the bile out into the stool and you're having problems, lactoferrin is like one of the first things that I would add. Some people may need to take lower doses at first, but there's like, because of this effect, there's research on lactoferrin, like you said, like sleep. There's legitimate, I'm just going to go there. There's legitimate research showing tremendous anti-cancer effects. And then there's also like cognitive benefits. Like there's like everything gets better when you make the liver better. And this ingredient is fantastic for that. And so like almost anything that you do, I think, I don't know. It's kind of becoming part of my no matter what stack, actually. So that's why I was like super stoked to see that you were like getting into it and kind of focusing in just with, just 2 ingredients, because it's an exciting one. And I hopefully like, yeah, we can just help people understand that there's some incredible stuff out there, and we shouldn't be surprised. It's found in milk, and our bodies actually, I think, produce some of it ourselves too. It's an important molecule.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. There's all the different categories it touches. There's so many studies I looked at where, like you mentioned, it just seemed to do so many different things. I was like, man, I love this. And the same thing with like colostrum. I found, I was like, I love this ingredient, and no one was asking me for this at the time. It was kind of like, I don't even know if somebody's going to buy this, but I was like, I really love this product. And I've been actually pretty happily surprised with the amount of people that have like, come out to support it and are reporting like, hey, I really feel like I'm getting benefits from this. It's cool because I'm so used to the sports nutrition space, and, pre-workouts sell really well and things like that. When people come into this type of space and kind of support these types of products, it makes me feel pretty good.
So when you mentioned that there was better sleep, I was actually thinking about the colostrum side of that too, because we've seen previous colostrum products be kind of marketed as like IGF-1 boosters, growth hormone boosters, and sometimes there's a connection with sleep there as well. So that was actually my first thought, and not even thinking about the lactoferrin side of things.
Yeah, I tried to stay away, like you mentioned, it's so hard to like figure out how to advertise it. I was like, well, what you usually have to pick like a category, and I didn't want to say like it's, the athlete multivitamin or something like that. But I was like, well, there's a lot of solid data on immune, so I'll kind of highlight that area, and then as people take it and associate it to other things, they'll see some of those benefits there as well. But the colostrum side, it's pretty cool too. And like you said, the IGF-1 is like always the first thing that comes to people's mind with that. And I can't even remember what the product was off the top of my head, but that was like the big thing at the time, is all these growth factors and stuff you're going to get from it.
Isotori BioGrow, which, man, that was a trip, because it was being promoted as this whole crazy thing, and maybe it was slightly modified colostrum, but essentially it was it was repackaged. From what I think, it was repackaged colostrum, or slightly like better purified colostrum powder that that people were, it was controversial, but some people get incredible benefits out of it. And and there's research supporting it, but it was really, there was a lot of pretty crafty marketing around it as well. And I was starting to get down the rabbit hole of that. And okay, I understand that colostrum itself, there's studies showing that like it outperforms the flu shot and everything in terms of like helping with influenza, all that stuff. So there's like really cool research, but on the website at the time, they were citing like IGF-1 studies and mice and everything. And I was just like, and it was injected, and it was like, I think like there's a right and wrong way of doing things. And I think we've learned a lot about that, because that was like nearly a decade ago, and things have definitely changed since then. So, it's cool talking to people like you, who do it right. As we heard your whole, the title of that episode is basically like manufacturing supplements like an engineer, or designing supplements like an engineer. So it's really good to hear how you kind of landed on how you do things. So when you pick up an ingredient, usually I'm pretty confident that there's some pretty good science behind it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the fun part to me, is like kind of going down the rabbit holes and seeing like, how does it affect me? And I think, some people be like, man, it takes you so long to come out with some of these products, but I like to like mess around with them for a while. Like this ingredient, and same thing with the PeptiStrong. I was using that like last year for a pretty good amount of time during like that big endurance block I was doing, to see like what effect do I actually get out of this? Because, there's all these like muscle claims, and it's going to build muscle and this and that. But I was like, if I'm really pushing stuff hard, what type of, do I actually see different recovery, or is it just kind of like, is it lost within the mix of everything else? Like, could I just take a protein shake and that's, boosting my muscle protein system? Is this enough to where, hey, I'm recovering, and all these other little botanicals and things like that, it's not really moving the needle. So I think that's important, to experiment with stuff for a long time. And I think, there's something to be said about coming out to markets with stuff quickly, and, being quick to get stuff in front of people to keep the hype and stuff going. But I don't know. At the same time, I just kind of go to my own beat and see where things go.
That's right. So when you were messing with the dosing of lactoferrin and colostrum, you landed on a gram of colostrum, 300 milligrams lactoferrin, 4 capsules, 30 servings per container, which is greatly appreciated. Good dosing. Were you messing with higher or lower doses with any lactoferrin? Did you have any issues?
Yeah, I was going higher and lower. I didn't really see too many issues going pretty high. I think at one point I took up to, I want to say 3 grams of it. And I don't think I saw any too negative of side effects, but then I started looking at like long-term. All right. So long-term, somebody takes this for a long time. Like, well, you can hammer people with ingredients and have something like, crazy over the top experience, but like somebody's going to take this on a maintenance type thing. Like what's a reasonable dose that you could take over an extended period of time and be effective? And that's kind of where I ended up with the 300 milligrams. And then the colostrum was one that I wanted to focus on that IgG content, and that's where I found the APS Label is the supplier of that ingredient. And I liked them because one thing I noticed with a lot of the colostrum stuff, or a lot of these like animal-based products, like you look into like the organs and stuff, they're coming in from Brazil or Australia or New Zealand, and like the sourcing on them is kind of weird, or like you don't really know the whole background behind a lot of the things. And they have all these agreements in place, and you look at their farm system to where it's all ethical treatment of animals, and this is all basically overflow colostrum. So you're not getting you're not stealing away from the calves. And I thought that was kind of like, I really respected that. And after talking with the people there, I thought it was a cool way to go, and the way that they prioritize the quality of the ingredient. And I was like, this is the one I've got to go with. So it was, I was pretty happy there.
Do you go as far as to visit the dairy farms and stuff like that?
For that specific one, I didn't, but it would be cool to at one point. I would like to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. You'd be one of the half dozen people that I would put on the list of people that would do that. So it's worth it. Very cool. Yeah. So one thing I've learned with Lactoferrin is that some people, this is why I like it split into 4 capsules, because some people need to start with lower doses. There's what's called the Lactoferrin cold, and you can start to detox a little bit and have the sniffles and start having a little bit of mucus action happening if you're pretty sick. And so it's nice that you can start with 1 capsule if needed. So for anyone who notices that, you get over it and you get better. It's I don't know, I love the stuff. So it's just, there's some really unique compounds of these milks here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm almost surprised you don't see it more places. That was kind of the surprising thing of these 2 ingredients. So there's I know there's this bigger brand that does colostrum now that you see them, their ads all over the place. That's actually what got me kind of my interest peaked on it, because I was buying that colostrum to put in my son's bottles when he was a baby. So I was like, hey, how do I, he's going to daycare, he's getting sick. How do I fortify his immune system? There's formula and milks and all these things you can buy, but you can't what else can you do? So I started going down the colostrum route there, and I kind of got what is this and what's all in it? What benefits can you reap out of it? And that's kind of how I ended up there.
Cool. So you mentioned, I'm going to switch topics a little bit. You had a big endurance block. Was that after our last podcast? Can you give us a little bit on what you were doing, and then how you're supplementing around it?
I think it was, man.
We haven't talked about the 100-miler. I don't know.
Yeah.
If get into that.
So I'm gearing back up for that right now. So I'm actually going through the exact same thing right now. So that was kind of moving up in mileage week to week till I think I progressed up to around 70 miles per week of total mileage right before this endurance event. So there's this local race called the Burning River 100. I'm going to do it again this year. Last year I made it 62 miles about, and then my hip flexors shut down, and it was it just wasn't great. So I was like, man, I got to come back and get vengeance on that thing this year. So I'm gearing up for it right now. I'm trying to do way more volume. So so far I'm feeling pretty good. As far as supplementation goes, I'm doing a lot of electrolytes, obviously. So, when you look at this is where the electrolyte stuff, I see a lot of the products now doing the high potassium, which there's that for sure. But when I'm getting into this type of realm, you got to shift over to pretty high sodium, and I would say moderate potassium, and kind of trace of the other minerals, just because you look at ratios of what you're losing in sweat, especially over hours of consuming this. I think I even talked to, there's a company I was talking to the other day, and he was having a lot of trouble understanding hey, I'm even working on a product for this. I'm like, this is something somebody might consume 20 times over a day. And he's like, what do you mean? You need, 1 or 2 servings. I'm like, no. This is I would need to dose this lower, because I can consume this, maybe 20 to 30 times over a 24-hour period. He's like, oh, that's too much. And I'm like, that's just how it works. But high sodium. So I think I look to replenish around, let's see, I'll do 300 milligrams. I have these 2 bottles. I can try to consume these every, we'll call it hour or so. So about 600 milligrams of sodium per hour. And then somewhere around the range of 40 grams of carbohydrates or more per hour. And then I would say, where are we at? Maybe 280, 300, 400 milligrams of potassium per hour. And then some of the other minerals traced in there. I've been doing a lot of experimenting with carbohydrate sources. So obviously clusterdextrin, that works really well and keeps your gut not too upset. But I just keep coming back to cane sugar. It just works.
Did you? I'm sorry.
Sorry,
I
go
want
ahead.
to before we get too far, the electrolyte balance that you were talking about. Did you
Yeah.
use any sort of technology to look at like, your sweat, or like did you like how did you arrive at those numbers? Because I've seen those patches that some people do.
I haven't done that. I just looked at like how I felt, and I've just done this over just a long period of time. Like, how does it
Okay.
like? What are the salt lines looking like? Like, how am I feeling endurance wise? And like, do I get any weird like blood pressure readings after doing these events or anything like that? And just kind of try to listen to my body in that aspect, and that's kind of how
Interesting.
I came to that conclusion.
Okay. Cool.
That's incredible. So, I mean, making 60. I want to hear about race day a little bit, but 62 miles, even if you didn't finish the Burning River 100. I'm assuming this is in Cleveland, of course.
Yeah, right.
And so yeah, we're both from Cleveland. So that's phenomenal that you did that. Like, man, that just sounds like punishment on the body. Is there any magnesium involved in any of this stack?
Yeah. So there's some magnesium in there. It's not a ton, maybe 50 to 80 milligrams per hour, not a ton in there. And then same thing with calcium. I think I went a little higher on the calcium, like 100 milligrams an hour or something like that. But they're your normal ones are in there, like kind of the base for, we'll call it, electrolytes are in there.
And
I've
so,
done. Sorry, go
are
ahead.
you going? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, are you going to continue running like basically it's an average of 10 miles a day, 70 miles per week is what you're running up to? Were you doing like bigger lasting ones and then rest days, or
So I'll do typically we'll go like on a Monday to Friday schedule. Like those will be, we'll call them like recovery runs, or not a lot of load on the body. So maybe 4 miles, 5 miles, like those kind of stay relatively low. They might peak out at like an 8 mile here and there, but like almost never exceed that Monday through Friday. Saturday, Sunday is we'll do a back to back. So Saturday is usually the long run day, so that could be up to like a 20-mile day. And then really what you want to do is just hammer, build fatigue, and then go out again the next day and maybe run 12, 15 miles. So you're tired, you don't feel good, you go back out again and you're running on fatigue. And so you're kind of just training your body to, I already feel like crap, my legs are sore, I don't want to go outside, like, in just going out and doing, because you just feel like that for such an extended period of time during the race. You're just trying to adapt to like feeling like that.
I
The other
heard.
thing sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say I was listening to a high level sports and conditioning trainer the other day, and they're saying that your gas tank is not your like your energy. Like people that have good gas tanks don't have energy for longer. They're just more comfortable like performing when they're tired. Like
Yeah.
People have this misconception that good cardio means that you just feel good the whole time. That's not how it is. How this works. Like what you're talking about here is running under fatigue. Like that is how you build a gas tank, because you're learning to just deal with the fatigue and fight through that. And that's real gas tank. That's fascinating.
I'd say that doing this stuff has taught me that the most. You go way, and even like going back to like lifting, like you're like, man, do you think of 1 RM, like, what's my 1 rep max, or like not 1 rep max, that's the right way to say it. Like why am I losing the term in my head? But like your max, say I got to do 20 reps, and you're not leaving a couple in the gas tank. You're like like literally maxing out the reps, and
like reps to
Like
failure?
reps to failure. That's what it is. Reps to
Yeah.
failure. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but like I feel like my failure point was set so low. Like after doing this, you're just like, oh man, I can just like suffer through so much more. Like you just kind of quit early, and then when you do something like this for an extended period of time, it just I don't know, you kind of adapt to it, and it's kind of cool.
That's cool. You may have answered my next question. I was basically ask, why are you doing this? Like,
Yeah,
especially if you have a kid and everything who's young enough to be having colostrum or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that everyone gets colostrum, by the way, but yeah. Why? What is the why here?
I don't. And then somebody asked me that the other day, like, why are you even doing it? Like, why? Like, what is the appeal to do it? I think my father-in-law, like, why would you want to run 100 miles? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I don't know if I even have a good answer. I think it goes back to, I ran a marathon. This was in 2011 or 2012. And I was going to sign up for a friend. I was not into really running much at the time, but it was a half marathon we were going to run. So we're both signed up, and he drops out last minute. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going halfway. Like I'm just going to change my registration to the full. And then I've got a marathon on my belt, and then like I'm over with it. I don't, that's not a thing I have to worry about again in the future. Not prepared. I was wrecked. I mean, if I'm sure I could pull my time up. I think it was like 6 hours to finish it. I mean, I was wrecked completely, like not prepared at all. But I just remember like a bunch of people when I changed it, they're like, there's 0% chance you're going to finish. There's no way you can't do it. Like, you're just not going to do it. I think they bet like $50 or $100 that you're just not going to do it. And I remember like wanting to quit so bad. Like, I for sure, like, I'm not going to finish this, but that just walking for like, I think I walked probably like at least 8 to 10 miles, like at the end. Because like I said, I just wasn't prepared for it. Calves were blown up and all this stuff. My feet were all blistered and bleeding because just no mileage under my belt, completely not prepared for it. But just like going through that, like wanting to quit for such a long time, but you just keep going and you keep going. And then all of a sudden you're at the finish line and you're just like, man, I just remember like getting back home and like sitting on my bed thinking like almost having no emotion. It was like like I think I pushed so far that like my brain went into a different mode, and it was weird how like I never wanted to do that again. And at the same time, I was like, how much further can you go? And then I started learning about that people. I was like, there's no way you can run 100 miles. Like, why? Like that's not possible. And then I kind of learned about people doing that, and then the races started becoming more popular and accessible. And now I'm like, yeah, he can do it. Like, I just need to suffer through it. And I think this is kind of a different viewpoint too, but I think there's a lot of things we hide from ourselves on a day-to-day basis, and we distract ourselves from that. Like, either that's something that you just don't want to deal with. You park that in the corner, like whether it's depressing for you or whatever it is. And when you push so far that like you you just want to quit and you hurt and you want to give up, you open up all that, whatever that is in there, and you got to deal with it during the run. And it's a way to, I think, like reflect back, and there's nobody there to like, help you through that. You just have to like deal with all those things. And I found like a lot of moments of like lifetime clarity, like going through these things and just seeing things from a completely new perspective. I think you break yourself down so much that you're like, I don't know. It's just brings these new perspectives. So those are I don't know if those are good reasons, but those are kind of my reasons for it.
That's awesome. No, there's that's almost like a mixture of the endorphin plus the meditation aspect of it. Because like when Ben's doing BJJ, he's got to be thinking full time. But if I'm just swimming like at my clip and I'm not going crazy, my mind will wander, and I could write a book, Yeah. So I imagine when you're running at that pace, you're able to like sort things out in your mind. There's I forget who it was. There was a famous like venture capital, this Indian guy, famous venture capital guy. He's got this big Twitter thread, how to get rich or whatever. And one of his things is meditating for just an hour a day for a whole month, and just like 30 whole hours total, but you're not allowed to do anything. And he's like, the dirtiest stuff's just gonna, not bad dirty, but like all the laundry's coming out to get cleaned. Yeah. Like if you spend a whole hour every day, like by the end of the month, you'll be cleaned out. And it sounds like that kind of like happened a little bit to you. And I have not done that level of meditation, but that was a way better answer than I expected. I love it, man. So I'm excited for when is the next race?
I find it on it's late July. I think it's July 28th or something like that. 28th, 29th, something around that range. End of July anyways. But I find that almost like a week to week basis, because I mean, some of these runs take you 2-3 hours to finish. And it's just like, I don't run with headphones, and I kind of like force myself to not do it, because again, it's like a way to, it's so easy, especially running a business and working a full-time job and having a family. It like, you're just, again, you're so distracted by so many things, and it's easy just to pick up the phone and re-distract yourself and all this stuff. And when there's just nothing there, I feel like there's a lot. I mean, there's mental clarity, there's things you work through, but then, there's benefits of, hey, there's this idea that popped in my head that's there that I would never have thought of if I'm just, moseying around and doing whatever I'm normally doing. So I think there's a lot of like positive benefits that come from it too.
One of my favorite parts of Soul Performance Nutrition has been not the products, but the changes in lifestyle for myself and a lot of people in the Discord community, like things like that, like pushing people to get off their phones, get off social media. Like one thing I wanted to talk about in the podcast is you've kind of had I don't want to say rebrand, but like a honing of your brand since our last podcast. Your whole Rediscover Real kind of campaign for yourself. Could you talk to us a little bit about like the ethos that you've found in Soul? Because it seems like you've found a real direction with the brand, and I've never really been able to put it in words.
Yeah, I just looked at, I'm super into obviously the supplement space, and I love the whole area and optimizing and seeing what these things can do for you. But then, that Reconnect with Real, I don't know where that came from, probably on a run or something like that. But it just came up like, especially during that endurance block last year, I just looked at, um, ultimately I'm trying to recover. So, what do I consume to recover? You got your protein and this and that. But then I just looked at like, it just became funny buying almost like the things you make fun of people for. Like, I'm going out to the farmer's market to get raw honey and I'm getting this, fermented thing and that. And then like, it just like, the more I did that, like, it's just like, not only did I feel like I recovered better, but like almost everything started to get better. So like, gut health and skin and like just mental clarity, mental energy. And it's just like, is this is this not obvious? Like, just doing all these, like, you take the most nutrient dense stuff you can and just ram yourself with it, and you're like, man, I feel great. Like, is this what maybe we're supposed to do this? Like, it's obvious, but I don't know, sometimes like we walk away from that for whatever reason. So I don't know where that reconnect with Real tagline came from, but like, I started just putting that on everything and trying to even sway people toward like, I don't know. You don't necessarily need a supplement. Hey, here's this thing that can help, but I'd rather you spend money on, optimizing your diet. Start there. Maybe you don't even need this thing. Like, hey, I need more mental energy and stuff. Do you need more mental energy from caffeine, or do you need it from like, you're just bogged down by whatever all this other stuff you're consuming? And I think that's where a lot of all the stuff came from. And then just looking at going down other like avenues of, I was doing all this stuff on environment maxing last year. I think so. That's one thing I really want to emphasize. Like, when I talk about running, like, people hear that and despise it. If I was on a treadmill doing this, there's no way. It's just game over. All of this is taking place outside. So I have this great park system by me. There's like nobody out there, and it's just trees and trail systems and birds flying by, and you're smelling, nature and all this stuff. You just feel refreshed doing it. So that, like, and I just looked into like, what are the benefits of, being outside, and there's just all this stuff there with, what do they call it? Forest bathing, I think the Japanese call it. And I don't remember the term, Shirin-Roku or something like that. And there's all these like cognitive benefits with like stress reduction in this and just being in that environment. And there's all the, lavender and all that stuff that you'd get for like aromatherapy and stuff that's just floating around the air, and you don't even realize it. And you're just sucking it in while you're running through, and doing all this trail running, and just, you come out and you're like, man, I'm hurting because I just went through this workout, but I just feel like refreshed simultaneously. So I don't know. There's some of that Reconnect with Real. I think that just, it's part of me now.
You sent me a care package. I think this was last year. It had to have been last year, where you sent me the raw honey with the honeycomb, which I fell in love with, and I kept eating honeycomb, which is like the weirdest thing in the world. I hate when it gets in my teeth, but I love the fact that like I consumed it. Like it feels good to do these things. But there was thieves oil in it, and I remember you left this note that just said, like, some of these things, when you consume them or smell them, whatever it is, you feel like there are gears turning inside of yourself that haven't moved in generations. And like, I fell in love with like just that concept. And like so many of my things, just like you said, like reconnect is the perfect word for it, because I feel like I've walked away from a lot of them. Like it's obvious stuff that we all know. Like, I threw on a weight vest and I would go for hikes earlier this year and late last year. Like, I would hike for miles after hours of rolling at jiu-jitsu. For all intents and purposes, like, I should be exhausted, but like, I felt phenomenal. I felt wonderful because I got the sun on my face. I smelled the trees. I'd leave my phone in the car and just go for a walk. it's like hilarious how we get so hyper focused on progress and weights and macronutrients and like body fat percentages, but then like I forget about it. I just focus on eating like my raw honey in the morning, and I get some sun on my face, and like everything magically fixes itself. It's and it feels like reconnection, which I loved the word that you used, because to me, like, it just feels like we forget sometimes, and when we remind ourselves, when we get back into it, it's a great experience, and it feels good, especially doing it with others and like sharing that. Like, I felt like a lot of us had communication over that. You and I kind of had a couple back and forths, which is it feels good to kind of like share that information with like other people. So I actually got, when you say environment massing, I thought you were talking about like environment wherever you are. I got really into air purification and like the essential oils and stuff like that, and I felt like it changed a lot for me as well.
Yeah, and then it's interesting going, coming across these things, and again, a lot of it's like voodoo and stuff like that. Like, all these granola crunchers are buying all this stuff, and then you look at this data or something comes out recently, and you're like, man, like, there's something to that. And I think there was one recently, and they were looking at, I want to say it was like an Alzheimer's study, and it was just aromatherapy in the room, and there's all these neurons firing that like weren't before, and you're just like, yeah, like there's something going on there that we've lost somehow. And I don't know if we could pull that back into our lives, whatever that might be. There's probably, like you said, important gears turning that they just weren't before.
When I first started working at PricePlow, I made fun of like astrology to Mike, I think, or it was something like kind of crunchy, hooky. And Mike was like, I don't know, man, there's something definitely to that. And I remember just thinking like, okay, maybe at like a really high level of science, like we really can't tell the difference between that and like something that's just nature, like just like part of our environment and nature around us. And I had a little bit more of an open mind because of Mike after that.
I'm not an astrologer. That's Joey right there. But, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of woo. I have a little bit, and probably not as much as Matt, and maybe not even as much as Ben anymore. But I've definitely become like kind of a de-prescriber. Like, there's doctors who are good at getting people off drugs by getting the right diet, and I've kind of become a de-prescriber in terms of some dietary supplements too, which may not make me the most popular person in this room, but it is what it is, and it's worked for me. In terms of when you get out into that park system, I'm sure there's still cell phone coverage and everything, but there is going to be a lot less electromagnetic interference. And so just de-prescribing electricity sometimes is a big thing. Like, just we've just gotten so used to having all this. And to me, one thing that I love doing is grounding. And I don't go like outside purposefully to ground, but sometimes the best I feel is when I'm outside picking weeds and just like hands in the dirt and everything. So you're not doing any barefoot like running or anything, are you?
No, but so back when I ran that original marathon, I was doing it in Vibram 5 fingers. So if we want to consider that, but that's probably what did me in. But recently, no, I just can't with that upper mileage. I just can't take that hammering. But it just walking around the yard and stuff like that, like without shoes on, that for sure, there's something there.
Yeah, well, that's funny. We have 3 honey lovers here as well. I gotta send you some of this Oklahoma honey. For the first time, a couple months ago, I bought a honeycomb out here, and I enjoy it. But what I find is that for the wax, at some point the wax becomes too much, so I just spit a little bit of it out. So I do like it, but I wish I had like a lower wax percentage. But that's not how it is. But I think there's definitely a little bit of magic to what the bees are making there. Have you messed with that in terms of your carbohydrates? I wanted to get back to the cane sugar conversation. I know that basically half glucose, half fructose in terms of a sucrose molecule and everything. I believe, you quote me if I'm wrong, but I believe honey's higher in fructose, but
I think so. And I think I wanted to look into it again. I think there's some weird like blood sugar, like it doesn't impact blood sugar as similarly as like sugar would. Right. There was something I was looking at related to that, but that is another thing I'll take like on, especially during the marathon, just basically like a honey sandwich. So like, 2 pieces of sourdough bread and just a glob of honey in there. And that's just like, fuel for going. So I will consume that, or just tablespoons of honey at like aid stations and stuff like that for sure. That's something I'll put in there.
Cool. And have you ever tinkered with dextrose? Because that's been my carbohydrate source for like just quick, punchy, fast action energy. But Just kind of curious, yeah, how you got to the cane
I don't
sugar
know if
thing.
I've used straight dextrose or not. I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've used straight. I've done the Palatinose, cluster dextrin, cane sugar, ketones. So we've messed around with those a little bit. I haven't now. This was years ago, so technology has moved on. But I found some gastric issues with that, and we want to avoid gastric issues on long runs. But
With what the
ketone, like some of the early salts and things like that.
Yeah.
But I believe, and actually I was talking I just connected with, I think, the Go BHB people recently here, so we'll probably be talking about that more. But I think a lot of that is much better than it used to be. So I think that's like an interesting thing to go down.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna I've kind of come to the same conclusion on some of this. I like my dextrose and everything, but if you look at some of the glycogen reload research, even so dextrose outperforms fructose. Fructose it hits the liver, so you don't get as much of a blood sugar spike. The dextrose helps load muscle glycogen better, but for whatever reason. And I'm sure maybe someone could explain this, but for whatever reason, just regular sucrose, the cane sugar, reloads glycogen nearly as well as dextrose, even though it is half fructose and everything. So there is like a little bit of magic in the sugar itself. Yeah. So as I've gotten more into things, like I was a low carb dieter for nearly like a decade and everything, and I start coming around. I'm watching how like my kids just kind of thrive on sugar, and it's not, and I don't mean like they get like the cracked out, whatever. I just mean that, like, to me, one of the bigger issues, I don't think sugar is the enemy anymore. Like if I give my kid regular vanilla ice cream with regular organic cane sugar and cream and milk, and not like the high fructose corn syrup with a bunch of glyphosate and all that stuff in there, kids thrive, and it's amazing. And I think like we did pretty good with sugar for quite a long time before things got all screwed up 50 years ago. And so I've kind of like come back around to sugar. I'm like, well, you know what? I don't think sugar is that bad, especially if you're active. So
I'm glad you added that at the end, because to me, like, the problem really is the sedentary lifestyle. Like I'm willing to feed humans a lot if they're active, like especially if they're like just pushing themselves. We're not, I hate the whole we're not meant to, I don't like that word, but I do mean it when I say like we're not meant to be sedentary. We're meant to fight for our land and our food and our team or whatever, like, or your tribe. And I think that most of us are like just lead very sedentary lifestyles that don't have the caloric demand.
Yeah, I've turned that around too, like exactly what you said with sugar. I was, oh yeah, it's not good for you and this and that, and we're not meant to consume all that. And I'm kind of 180 on that now, especially over the past couple of years. It's just, the more I consume, it seems like the better I feel. Now, again, my activity level's through the roof, so there's that, but feel pretty good.
How are you balancing your activity level? You still have a full-time job, right?
Yep.
As you did in the last show. You have a kid and you're running 100 miles, like what, and running a supplement brand over here. Like, what is going on over there?
So
are you sleeping? I
get up pretty early, and I get to work pretty early. So I try to leave at a reasonable hour. So I'll get home and I try to upload. I don't really do a lot of advertising and things like that. So I don't have to. It's really just social media content. So I don't have to manage a bunch of advertising and campaigns and this and that and analyze all this and stuff. And where am I like? I just don't really care. Like, I'm just like, I'm sure that's going to be super beneficial. I get better reach out of it, but like, I don't understand it. So whatever money I'm just going to be throwing to the wind, basically. So that's just what I've determined for now. So I just kind of, just work on social media content for a little bit, especially on the weekends when I have a little bit more time, put some, try to front load as much of that as I can so I can just trickle it in throughout the week. And then I just don't do anything else. Like, I work on the supplement brand. I spend time with my family. I literally don't do anything else. So I know like a lot of people are like, I'm hanging out. Like, I don't do anything else. Like I don't spend time with like hardly my friends anymore. I'll chat with them here and there, but like, I can't remember the last time I did something besides these things. That's basically all I do.
Totally understood. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. Like, I look back in my life and I'm like, man, we would, like, in college, went to the same bars over and over. And well, like, that did nothing for my life. Like, I don't, so like, there's not, no, you find what you want to do and you do it. And like, and there's, of course, people very successful get pretty obsessive about things and everything. So That's great. Ben, I don't know if you have other questions. I was going to get back to supplementation.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so let's pretend we're formulating. What were you going to put into the PeptiStrong product? Where was your head going with PeptiStrong before you went sole on PeptiStrong?
So
what were you doing?
I'm not saying I'm not going to do this, but urethrin B was a big one. So that is in urethrin A, urethrin B. So like, again, I want to try to trickle together gut health, and those always do well with like the gut environment. Can you trickle that in and at the same time help that like muscle health pathway? So that was one of the concepts there. That's some of that stuff's pretty pricey, especially getting like some of these like advanced soluble forms and things like that, and some of the ones that work well in like the gut environment. That was one. I looked at a similar, I think it might have even been the same ingredient, the GG Gold. I was looking at that as well, that they were using an anomaly. I looked at that compared to see, what could that do in application. Trying to think off the top of my head what else I had in there. It was a lot of it was around those urethrin ingredients. I'm not even sure I'm saying that correct, but like diving deep into that, and there's all these different segments of them, because you often hear about the urethrin A in almost all products. You almost never hear about B, and especially the other ones, and like what those could do, what when you combine them together, and like what synergies they might have with the product. And that like spiked the price, probably because like nobody makes it, spiked the price up pretty high. At the time, those were like some of the heavy hitters that I was looking at to go along with it.
I like that. That gives me a couple ideas to save for later. But yeah, like one idea, pomegranate might bring a little bit of that. So it'd be like a PeptiStrong or pomegranate, whatever. So, I was wrong. Pomegranate PeptiStrong. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. Okay, I figured you had something unique there and everything. I don't think you could just put GG Gold next to it though, because then it would just be an anomaly ripping.
Right.
We'd have to hate on you, or not hate on you, but we'd have to be like, dude, come on, you can't do that.
There's some ingredients that somebody else when they ask you this, that I'm like, I just kind of stay away from, because I'm like, that's like kind of their thing. Like like English Ivy is another one. Like that's a total Glaxon ingredient. I'm like, I'm just not going to use that.
It kind of makes me sad to hear that, because like, well, I love Joey, and I absolutely agree. Like some people have things like, there are a lot of ingredients that I think are used, that can be used in different directions that you've done, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh man, there's an ingredient that you used in a really different way, and I can't remember what it was. But
they used Velocitol and the collagen.
Yes, that's a good one.
Which we had talked about, but like we just need someone to do it. Even though there's no scientific claims or anything. I mean, come on, the effect is probably going to work. Is kind of the hope, and so that was one thing. Have you stayed? Yeah, sorry, Ben.
Oh, S7. S7, when you use S7 as an antioxidant source, not a pump ingredient, which
like way at the beginning. Yeah, that was, I looked at that and I talked with the guys at Futureceuticals, and I was like, hey, this is kind of like what I see and why I want to use this. Like I think the data kind of supports this better, and they like agreed with what my thoughts, and I was like, man, that's what I'm going to do. And so I didn't really talk about pump or really anything like that. I was like, hey, I think this is a low dose antioxidant source that almost the data kind of guides you that way anyways. They kind of focused on all the nitric oxide stuff, but I thought that was a nice low dose and not like overly flavor tainting ingredient. You can add that was to the electrolyte at the time, and not like screw your whole flavor profile up. That I thought had some benefits there, and that was a fun one.
Totally agreed there. I like when people do that stuff, because it allows you to take an ingredient that people already appreciate it and frame it in a different perspective, which I think you definitely are someone that we look to do that. Mike, did you have any other formula questions?
No. I guess this personal question for me is, when you are adding the Nova Immune Renewal to feeding it to your kid, how are you delivering that? You just adding some milk and shaking it up, or just one capsule?
So I was actually buying a separate, and that's kind of what I'm still doing, is just buying a separate powder just out of convenience from another brand, just because you can get a bunch of scoops of it, and I just add it to that. But I was also doing like just breaking one capsule open and putting it in there to go along with it. Yeah,
just making sure that 75 milligrams lactoferrin is not too much or anything. So, but I'm pretty sure that it would work. Cool. Okay. Of course, it depends on the size and weight and everything of everyone.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anything else.
I was going to ask about future plans. I will say
Yeah.
I beta tested something for Matt last year that I don't know where that ever went.
So that that is the electrolyte I think you're talking about that
Yep.
I sent over. That is still, it's just been a long development road. That is one I was really messing around with, like almost like fiber and carbohydrate sources, and I went way off the deep end with that. Especially like that one was, it turned into a science experiment almost. And I don't know. I almost think I want to revert back to that just because it was so crazy. But that one was fun. It's got some cool stuff in it. I'm sure you probably noticed some things are a little different with that one, but so that's the electrolyte V2 that's been in development for quite some time. And I'm just trying to see, what ratios do I go with? Cause the first product was pretty unique and it had a lot of people that came at it and that liked it, but I thought, it was time for an update. There's a lot of electrolytes that have synactives, a lot of electrolytes that I think a couple more I've seen pull S7 in and Pico 2 and this and that. I'm like, now it's, at this point, it's almost like very similar to other products out there. How can I make it different? And this one was different. So I've been working through one, flavoring, because it was somewhat of a challenge, and two, would people understand it? I really struggle with that a lot. I love coming out with these products and putting them out there for people to buy, but one of the things sometimes I struggle with is actually communicating like all these things it does, kind of like hinting back to the Nova one, or even like Solace Joint Care, like that. I have it targeted at joints, but like part of the fun of that was like, what are all these other things it can do? Because it's really like a healthy inflammation level type product, not just, and it just so happens to help your joints feel good, but it's doing a lot of different things in the body. Same thing with kind of the Nova Immune one, but you got to pick like a category to stick it in so people at least sort of understand what's going on there. Same thing with this electrolyte is I was really focused on upregulation of electrolytes in the gut. So ratios of electrolytes, and then looking at, speaking of, like, I was doing a lot with HMOs. So human milk oligosaccharides. So putting those in there, milk fat, globular membrane, putting that in there. And then nucleotides. I almost looked at, and again, this is shortly after my son was born, so I'm getting a lot of like inspiration from different things like baby formula and like, why are I was like, oh, this is a supplement. I'm like, oh, why is some of this stuff in here? What does this do? And just looking at like long chain, long tail, and making some assumptions on, well, if it's doing this, therefore it's kind of is going to have some action over here in this category, and they haven't quite made that connection yet, or the science hasn't quite got there, but that's just how it's going to work. And that's how a lot of that ended up coming together and working with these different fiber sources and how I felt taking it. So it was like this gut slash electrolyte product, but again, like it was difficult to figure out how to communicate that to somebody. So I have that formula kind of sitting there, and I have another electrolyte formula right next to it that I'm working on side by side to gauge. I actually just recently sent it out to a bunch of people in the Discord that are customers and their orders to see, hey, what do you think about these? Here's some different flavors and how you feeling on this. So we'll see which one ends up making it out. So those are two products that are really, that's the one product that's in the pipeline. We already talked about PeptiStrong, and there is a chance that those urethrins make it in there, and I'm going to see what I can do to ramp that up because somebody else is going to do it. Someone else is going to try to do a low entry point PeptiStrong, I'm assuming, or they'll realize that like I'm barely making any money off of it and they don't want to do that. So they'll be like, yeah, it's not worth it. But
you got that market cornered right now.
But if somebody comes after that, and there's always innovation to do. So what else can be done there? And a lot of what I've done, working with a lot of these companies like Neuritas and these other people, like I'm willing to look at the science they have and kind of like be a first adopter. And that's kind of how I explain it, is like I might not be the guy who's going to sell millions of units, but I believe in your guys' science, and I can help people understand maybe in the industry what this is, and probably drive other brands to buy this ingredient from you. But I'm going to understand your science, and I'm going to do right by your science and leverage it in the correct way and not do some weird combination with these illicit ingredients or use it in some disrespectful way. I think there's a lot of appreciation from some of these brands that way. And I think that's gone pretty well. Some of the relationships I've made with these different ingredient manufacturers, and there's some stuff I'm working with right now that hasn't even been advertised that you guys probably are aware of, but it's pretty cool. I think there's a lot of neat innovation coming down the road.
So I'm on your electrolyte endurance powder page right now. Sold out. Is it not coming back?
That formula is sold out. It's not coming back. It's retired.
Oh, okay. We'll have to throw the funeral on the PricePlow since it's discontinued. Womp womp. Okay. Well, yeah. Hey, it was a good run. That was your first product, wasn't it?
Yeah. And that's why I said I love electrolytes, and that's the first thing I came out with, and that's why some of this other stuff has evolved from there. But yeah, it was cool. Going through a couple runs of that, selling out, and being like, that was the first thing I started with. So it's like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how to advertise and things like that. And seeing people support it and react to it, especially over time, it kind of grew and developed a following. It was fun.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. Sorry to see it go and everything, but I like the idea of an electrolyte. I'm not sure how you would market it, but to me, it'd be electrolyte supplement that's good for the gut.
Yeah.
And because you're not necessarily, maybe if there's fiber in it, you probably don't want to take it, even though fiber takes me a while to get like to work its magic or whatever. I don't know if people would want to take it during competition, but there's like that afternoon drink where you're just getting a little bit parched or whatever. That could be like a good time to have like, an electrolyte supplement that's got some gut health benefits. I think it could be a good combination. Again, probably not going to sell millions of bottles, or some female oriented brand at Target's going to take the formula or take the idea and then blow it up. But it's two hot categories. So it seems like it could work.
And there's cool, I think there's things you can do combining ingredients together where they start to form different textures, not necessarily in the bottle, but like in your body, like they turn in maybe to a gel or some sort of like another type of substance that flows through the intestines a different way and like delivers electrolytes differently. Maybe like it helps with some of that gut distress, like calm that down a little bit. That was kind of like some of the things I was like, how could I leverage some of those actions and think of that in a different way, like almost like ingredient delivery through once it is what it is in the bottle, but once it hits your stomach acid, it changes. That type of action.
Yeah, like psyllium husk, how it gels up and everything, and water and different things. It's a cool idea. Yeah, I wish I could give you feedback in terms of will this work or whatever. I guess maybe you'll get a few people messaging you saying, "Hey, that sounds like a good idea." So yeah, I take it you are kind of like more on the pro fiber side. Like when you're doing all this carbohydrate intake, are you having to bump your fiber intake up as well, like later on in the day after a big run, or do you kind of keep those separate? Like what do you do with fiber?
I eat a lot of fruit, so I think like I'm getting a lot of fruit intake. What else am I? I mean, a lot of like I just eat a ton of vegetables. So I get basically got meat, vegetable, and all the types of fruits. And so I think I'm getting in. I'm not taking like a specific like fiber supplement or anything like that, but I think my diet's just naturally pretty high in fiber, like naturally occurring fibers from different things that it's not something I've ever really worried about too much or specifically focused on. I think it's just, the natural stuff I'm taking in, it just kind of, it's already there.
Gotcha. Cool.
I got a tangential question, not even tangential, completely different topic, but it's so related. Your magazines that you've published, your episodes, I got to ask, like, how do you come up with those? Where do those come from?
That's just like, so part of it was, hey, I want to get better at like writing stuff and I want to get better at making content. And I was like, well, what if I turned it in like a magazine and like put it on the back end of the website? And like, it's kind of hard to find. So you have to like actually find it. I just put it out there to put on like the internet, and I would do email blasts with it. And so those are things I kind of slowly work on. And it's just a way to like put like cool imagery along with words, and how do I tie that together and kind of take my time to do it and, focus on something. I did it like, especially something I'm interested in at the time. So, I'll start one and I don't have a due date when I'm finishing this. It's just what's something I'm interested in at the time. Oh, hey, this is kind of cool. I'll tell some people about it. So just write about it in this like magazine, like I said, with some imagery and stuff like that, and put it out there and just see what kind of hits I get on it. And some people have really liked it a lot. So that's been fun to do.
I think.
Is this
Sorry, I was.
Well, I was going to ask if this was, is this you're designing yourself? Because this looks really good. I want to link to one of these in the show notes. Are you doing the PDF design on this?
Yep. Yeah. So it's just, I do it in Photoshop and stuff. And
I think this is the coolest thing that Matt does. Like when you make these into social posts, like Matt will casually just throw up an aspect of this as a story post. And like, I don't think it gets enough love because it's only up for 24 hours and then it's gone. I think when you do these, like I respond to most of them. I try to, at least. Like I like, you do an incredible job of picking like really cool imagery and just the right types of things to put over it. Like I think it's the most creative thing that you create. And I like, just for the life of me, I couldn't create any of this. Like this, it's wild to me what you do with it.
It's just, it's just, and it takes a while, and it just, I don't know. It's like a creative outlet almost. I don't take it super seriously. It's more of like, hey, oh, this was cool. Or I came across a cool quote or something that stuck to me. So I'll just do like this, page separator between two pieces of content that I'm talking about, and just kind of throw that in there and see, just what people think about it. And sometimes I'll forget about it, and then like, because I'll be working on it slowly, and then you'll bring it up and be like, oh yeah, I gotta get working on that again. And people do read it, and it's cool. So it was almost like a challenge to myself, like, hey, you need to get better at working on content, because the camera stuff, I mean, especially when I first started doing this, like if you don't do advertising on social media, you basically have to advertise yourself, and you just got to put a bunch of content out here. And it's just super awkward being on a camera and recording yourself. I remember when I would do stories, it would take me like 40 minutes to have like some stupid thing of me saying like, who knows what, because you're stumbling over your words, you don't know what to say. And like, I'm not that I'm good at it now. I'm definitely not, but it's just like, and it was like, okay, well, what's a way I can make like my writing better, or the way I interface with like some of the content, or the way I interface with studies, like how can I practice like relaying complex information to somebody that like maybe they can digest it. And this is like a way for me to do it. And it's like, I don't get anything from it. It's just like, hey, somebody might see this. And a lot of times they're like, oh, hey, how can I buy this one time I was talking about like, what was it? Dragon's blood is like this Demon Drops Draco. It's this tree sap like stuff. I don't even remember where I found it, but I was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm gonna write about it. Like, where do I get this? I don't see it on your website anywhere. I'm like, yeah, it's not there. I'm just I'm just talking about it. I'm like, it's just kind of cool.
Yeah, this looks really cool. I love you're talking about dental health in the episode in version 3 and whatever, and this is stuff that my wife's into. She'd love like what you wrote here. I'm just like, this is pretty cool. So you're talking about remineralizing. I spell remineralizing your smile. So like pretty cool stuff, man. You're an interesting fella.
I don't know. I mean, I mean this in a positive way. This stuff is so cool. It's just not what the current generation is engaging with. Like if you put this in an actual magazine format 10 years ago, this would have like flown off of shelves. Like if you can find out how to take this energy and put it into video, like I think it will engage so well. I love what you do with it. I wish that you could find a way to make this into a faceless video. I mean, it's a huge section of content right now.
And that's almost what made me think of it too. Like exactly what we just said with, like this generation doesn't interact with it. It's almost like when I was growing up, like that's kind of what you had, I guess, our magazines and books.
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know how it dawned on me, but I was like, I'm just going to make a magazine, and like, it's like nobody's buying it. So it's like, I'll just make whatever I want. And, I don't have to charge anyone for it, and I'll just see if people like it. And, that's sort of where it came from is, like, hey, like nobody does this. Like magazines are kind of like over. I'll just do that and see who responds to it, or how people, and I think you can do cool stuff with graphics and things like that. And that's why I don't know. That's how I ended up there. I think I think it's a fun thing to like experiment with.
I mean, you just
maybe that's to them in the show notes. You definitely make them look really good.
Yeah, it's insane. Like some of just the shots that you use, like it looks like a magazine cover. Like episode 3, I went to check it out because of Mike. Like the Explore one, I mean, that looks like a magazine for some sort of travel agency. Like it's insane. Like what you put together, it's really powerful. I'm going to continue to push you that you need to figure out how to figure this out in video.
Yeah, I'll just find cool pictures on the internet and be like, oh, I can use that at some point. I don't know how, but I'm going to use that at some point. And I just got this big folder of these pictures and come up with, words to put over it and how do I link it into, the brand. And I think, I don't know, it's just a fun way I think that's actually where Reconnect with Real came from. It might have been that magazine. It might have been like an image and I put that over top of something and I'm like, that's it. This is the thing like I've been looking for. And if I never created that, it would never have come from anywhere.
Yeah. Wow. Well, dude, thank you for telling us about this. Cause I've just been in love with, I didn't know about the magazines until recently. I love the way that you use it for content. I'm blown away with your talent on there. I think you got some real good stuff there.
I appreciate that.
Sure. So one last question. So the two new products, Nexus Peptide Complex, Nova Immune Renewal, they don't have the BSCG certified drug-free sticker on them. Are you going to do that, or you don't feel the need to with these ingredients?
So I was going to, with these two, because they're less complex. I was like, I've done BSCG from the beginning, and I'm actually still considering it. Part of it was like, are people going to buy this? Like, because it was a sort of as I came out with these, especially the colostrum one, like, are people even interested in this, or is this something I'm interested in? And that was sort of how I played it off at first was, is this something that I would keep in the rotation? We'll call like the main line of products that I'll put the BSCG seal on, or will it be this thing where I'll make a run or two and it just doesn't exist for a long time? But I'm thinking it's to the point where it's got some traction that I'm going to do it across the board. So I haven't done it to those two yet. And those were really the main reasons was it just, I saw Ben's post on, or he put a link to the one on LinkedIn about product testing and stuff like that. And the BSCG is this huge. I mean, it would be my entire profit for like one of the runs of PeptiStrong, basically. So it was like, do I do that? And do people even care what that is, or do I just care what that is? But if it's something I'm going to keep long term, I think it's something I'm going to want to do.
Interesting. I mean, I would honestly rather you keep your profits than I love BSCG. Sorry, Oliver, like don't want to, but I think if it is, we know you have a great manufacturer. We went through that episode on the podcast, and now if it's just PeptiStrong, like it basically relies on the WADA, substance fate of PeptiStrong itself. I trust that there's nothing else in the bottle. Yeah. In fact, you have rice hulls as the other ingredient. So it's like, I don't know, man. I would say don't do it just because, like, okay, I believe it. I don't think I need to not believe it. Just knowing where you're manufactured and then knowing where, and just knowing that you have that one ingredient and they're not going to let you mess around with it. So to me, I'd keep your money. But at the same time, it is very cool when you show, that this is definitely certified. If you were like advertising actively at athletes, I'd be like, yeah, you should probably do that.
I'm kind of looking at other avenues too. Like what are other tests that like I don't see anybody talking about that like isn't commonly done? Like there'll be assays for certain things, but I don't often see like pesticides, like someone going real deep off the deep end on like pesticides and like colostrum. I don't think that is super applicable there, but like maybe something like, PeptiStrong, it's a fava bean, it grows somewhere, that could be pesticide sprayed. Maybe it's worth seeing what's in there. That type of stuff, like going down the route of like some of these other tests that like just I don't see anybody else do. That's some of the stuff I've been looking at to see, would that be interesting? Would people care a lot about that? And just some kind of differentiator.
That would be cool. I would love to see glyphosate tests on these wheat flours and stuff. Like we buy from Italy where it's not allowed. Like, is it really Italian wheat? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the chain of custody myself. So, but no, I think we think very similarly like that. I honestly think that would be a cooler thing to do. Not that I think PeptiStrong is full of glyphosate or anything, so I don't know like what you'd want to do. But yeah, maybe like if I'm not even sure if there's tests for antibiotics in the colostrum or something like that. That could be of interest, even though it'd be so minuscule that it wouldn't really matter. But if the supplier is saying, oh, it's these cows were not fed antibiotics and they're being milked or whatever. Oh, all right, let's prove it.
Yeah,
I think those things are pretty cool. But yeah, if you're not a billionaire, there's only so many things you could afford.
Yeah, sometimes I ask myself, like, what am I doing for my interest and what am I doing for like that people actually care about, like that type, and people even understand and even think about that. Because I had somebody tell me, almost like a mentor type figure, like people don't, what they say, they don't buy quality. Quality is expected. So it's like, it's sometimes approaching things from a quality standpoint. I think I learned that early on, approaching stuff from a quality standpoint, like, you know, what does everybody say? They have the highest quality products on the market and this and that. And it's just like, okay, well, since everybody's got it, then I guess mine's just about the same as everybody else's. So what can you do differently?
That is a great point, though. I would take this a little bit less optimistic in a direction than you did, because people expect quality. They don't search for it. All you have to do is show them that the stuff that they're already using is not quality. Like,
sure.
People, I think, like, I don't know, maybe that's my takeaway. People don't buy quality. They expect it. Like, that's a very slippery slope, because once you show, like, hey, the stuff that you're purchasing most likely is not good quality, then it's very open.
Creatine gummies.
Yeah, creatine gummies. Exactly the point right there. Yeah, that's a great point. And the way that I kind of look at it also is like, when is the consumer going to use this product? Like, as we were talking about the gut and electrolyte product, I was like, I understand, and this is cool and everything, but like, when does the normal consumer consume this, and how often do they consume it? Right? Like, I think I'm a lot like you. I make products for myself, and I am definitely N of one in the things that I do. Like the vast consumer needs things that are like, all right, I take this before bed, you know, like
right.
not before the 20-mile run, like that,
right?
Because
right.
everyone goes to bed. Not everyone does a 20-mile run, you know. That's something that always comes back to my mind, is like, is this really a universal concept? And I don't know. I think there's been a lot of really cool cases like gut health and electrolytes where it's really cool and it's great for a lot of people, but it's just not mainstream. And that's my filter that kills most things these days, unfortunately.
I think there's been a lot of cool innovation in the, I don't know what you want to call it, like functional beverage space. So looking at, like, you know, when you go to whatever store, actually, I almost see it everywhere now. But like these
7-Eleven?
I don't even want to say like the non-alcoholic category, but that's even like a thing now. But like all these like other category for beverage, like there's just this huge thing now that you can have where it's got probiotics or gut health, or like mocktail type things where they have, like, I'm seeing a lot of adaptogens get pulled into that. I think that's really cool. I don't know if that's a category I ever want to get involved in, but as a consumer, I just think it's a really neat space that there's all these different options out there for people now, that just these functional categories that 10 years ago just didn't exist, and people almost like embrace it. They seem very popular than embracing it. So I wonder what impacts and echoes that's going to have through the rest of the industry with some of these things, because I think another cool one it dawned on me the other day looking at, I just noticed that my wife skincare products just sitting on the thing, and I see the word adaptogens on it. I'm like, no way. So I pick it up, and ashwagandha, and then I picked up another one, tremella mushroom, and I'm like, this is all the same stuff I've got, and I'm like, this is infiltrated. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And, you know, you got your niacinamide and vitamin C, seeing commercials, and those are in products. But like now these like botanicals and peptides and all this stuff is making it into there. I'm like, this is like a really cool crossover type. It's just neat to sit. Like, I don't know if I would ever do anything there, but as a standing back and looking back, it's just cool to see, I think, as a consumer.
Our industry's got nothing on the skincare industry. We're like little cockroaches compared to them. They can get away with some stuff too, so gotta watch out for some of that.
I've had a lot of conversations, like you said, Oliver, and he's like, you know, people talk about the supplement space, and, you know, he went all through all these methods, and he was talking about pharmaceutical industry, and he's hammering stuff back and forth. But he's like, man, you should look at the skincare industry. He's like, that's the real Wild West over there.
I love Oliver, and I think he knows that I say this lovingly. He ruins all of the fun. He really does pull back the curtain, and you're like, oh, okay, like none of this is efficacious. Okay, all right, I get it now. When we were at Expo West, I thought of you, Matt, because we went down to like the new foods room, and there were just like so many cool applications, I think of you with like just function, like weird funky foods or things to add in, and we had so much fun down there. I think next year you got to go to that show.
Yeah, that's what Natural Products Expo.
West,
Yeah,
in
that's
Anaheim.
I saw your guys' coverage on that. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun. You go straight down. Well, you got to meet your ingredient supplier friends and everything, but yeah, go straight downstairs and you'll just smell. It's like just a cook off going on down there of all sorts of crazy stuff. You'll see things that you didn't even think were possibly possible, and so it's pretty cool. I do have one more. I have one question I forgot to ask. Glass bottle. What's the story with the glass bottles? And yeah, tell me about that. I'm kind of curious, like how much more this costs, but this is like it's a premium looking bottle, man. I'm impressed.
That was another one that I just looked at. Just one day I was standing there and I looked over and it's just a wall of like I just have this plastic and I'm like does that like do I want to do that like because ultimately I put no thought into it. It was I'm making a supplement. It needs to go in a container. They're black, they're white, they're clear, they're whatever color, and that's what you do. You get it and you put your sticker on it, and that's what it like. Who changes the bottle? And I just looked over one day and again with not putting any thought into it. I'm like, well, how did I get here? Like, could I go a different route? And that I just started approaching my manufacturer. Is this an option? Can I do glass? What implications are there? And we kind of went over what those were. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it and see what, the customer thinks. And I don't really care. Like, it's going to cost me a little bit more per product and maybe a little bit more per shipping. And there's definitely a learning curve in the beginning because I broke some bottles on my first shipments that I sent out to people because it was, you just got to pack them differently. But I'm kind of happy it is where it is. I think it has a nice feel in the hand. And I don't know. I think it was just the right thing to do. And I don't know, like, I always sometimes compare myself. Like I look at these brands and they talk about all this innovation and stuff. I'm like the guy in the basement and I'm like doing all this stuff. Like you guys can freaking handle this. Like do some innovative stuff yourself. And like, if I can do it, some of these other brands can do it.
Yeah, we sometimes get onto an anti-plastic tirade. It was Dr. Cameron Sapau was the first one in his first episode. Maybe it was 62. Kind of called out the industry a little bit. He's like, all that plastic, man, it's also in your supplement tubs. And we didn't have a great response for it. So now we got sold. But either way, that would be an interesting lab test. So this is a capsule product. Like how much, if you put these capsules into a BPA plastic bottle, how much plastic is really rubbing off onto the capsules? Like I'd be kind of curious about it. Now that's a lab test that might be worthwhile. I'm sure it's like very, very, very small. But if we're talking about powders moving around, shaking up and everything, then maybe a little bit more. And then if you're talking about liquids, then I would say probably like a lot more because that's definitely a fluid. So, I mean, that kind of stuff I think would be a cool place to like throw a little bit of lab testing money at to see like, at least one specific like forever chemical or something like that. But I'm happy you went ahead and do that. Are you willing to share how much more it costs to do a glass bottle?
I'd have to look at it, like, because I don't know off the top of my head, but it wasn't like dramatically more. Really, what ends up, it's not dramatically more, but what does it is you got to be more careful packaging it. So like if you just got a bunch of random people packaging stuff that don't care, you're gonna break stuff. And then the shipping weight goes up a lot. So if you have like a regular bottle versus that, so that is really the cost contributor. And I get a lot of people that buy over, I think right now I've got over $50 free shipping on the website. I get a lot of people that buy over that, so I consume that shipping costs. But that's I would say that's the bigger contributor than the cost of the container. In my opinion, because I think it wasn't like that. It wasn't enough to where I was like, holy crap, I can't do that. There's no way I can handle it. It wasn't dramatic.
It was after the fact. Yeah. But I hear what you're saying. Like people are like, oh, we got this innovation here. And this beautiful innovation inside of the tub is in this, like just this crappy, cheap plastic tub. You're like, oh yeah, I get it, but it's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the bigger containers. Like, because I want to try to keep staying away from plastic. I know there's these things you can do with cardboard. I've seen like mushroom based, like, I don't even know what it was, mycelium or something containers. I'm like, oh, maybe I can do something there. So
that'd be really cool.
Trying to figure out on the bigger powder stuff, like what could I do with it? But I haven't quite got there yet.
You could just wrap it into butcher paper inside of the plastic tub, unbleached butcher. I don't know. So that's another story, but pretty cool. Well, I love what you're doing. So keep it up, man. It's always fun.
Yeah, no, it's fun. talking with you guys. And yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, I've learned a lot over the past couple of years, and you know, met a lot of great guys like you, both of you, the industry. It's just been fun. It's a creative outlet, and hope to keep doing it as long as I can do it, and maybe switch over to doing it full time at some point.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome. So, we'll definitely want to like at least be able to share some of your updates after the Burning River 100
Yeah.
to share some of those updates and everything. And then we always see each other at least at the Arnold Sports Festival.
Yeah,
If nothing
absolutely.
else. We are going to lobby to try to go to head to Cleveland for the WrestleMania event that's going to happen there. There is a certain company who is the certain energy drink sponsor, and we want in. So we're gonna go for it.
Wonder if you guys will see. Wonder if Ryan will be up there too if it's WrestleMania.
Yeah. I don't know, man. He's got other stuff to sell. We're just gonna have to take his spot.
Thank you so much,
Ben. You lost connection for a little bit, but
I'm back. Yeah, we're all good. Yeah, no, I want to say thank you, Matt. This has been really fun. I love connecting with you guys and well, with you. It's really just you at the team. And on the glass topic, I love that you guys do that. I just wanted to add, it really adds weight to the bottle, which changes up my like. When I'm going through 4 bottles and then all of a sudden I get to the glass bottles, like I always remember, like, oh, this is Soul. It's not just part of my routine. It definitely kind of splits up, gets my attention. And I don't know. There's something about amber bottles. I don't know if you guys talked about that, but it's just like there's something about that to me that just like it feels like I'm doing something good for my health. If it was in like glass bottles that were clear, I might feel it's more pharmaceutical, but the amber tone to it, for some reason, just reminds me of like old elixirs or something.
Yeah, I love that old like amber look, and that's why I went that way. I like kind of like old school mixed with new school. I'm trying to do a lot of that, like that harkening back and mix that in when I can, and I love that amber look. So I specifically went that way.
Well, you pick this up, and it feels real. And then I was like looking at your site, Reconnect with Real, and so it totally fits, man.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, Matt. Well, thank you once again for joining us and everything. We will have to catch up with you again in the future. Good luck in all in your training when you start hitting the heavy endurance and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Stay healthy and stay in touch.
Yeah, appreciate you guys bringing me on again. I had a lot of fun.